Chapter 22. Baoa, the southern sector of the Earth Federation Force's frontline space base, Luna II, was used to house refugees, almost all of whom had been mobilized to work in support of the military. Frau Bo, Amuro Ray's childhood sweetheart from Side 7, was degreasing the critical parts of over a dozen elect cars when she suddenly felt a chill surge through her body. It was so strong and her limbs shook so hard that she nearly lost her grip on the equipment she was operating. For a second she wondered if she had contracted a particularly virulent form of the flu, but she quickly decided otherwise. It was too intense. With lips trembling, she turned to Ryam, her aging co-worker on the line, and asked, "Excuse me, but would you mind taking over for me for a minute?" Ryam took one look, instantly knew something was wrong, and told her to go lie down. The dozen meters or so from the degreasing machinery to the employee rec room seemed to take forever. Frau's heart began to pound, and she gasped loudly, gulping in the dusty factory air, which only aggravated her burning throat. As if in a dream, she heard someone behind her yell, "She needs a doctor," and only faintly realized it was Ryam. She reached the rec room door, groped for it, opened it, and staggered over to the vidphone in the corner. "I've got to talk to someone," she thought as she collapsed on the sofa beside the vidphone, receiver in hand, shivering and feeling weaker and weaker. "Cats!" she groaned, calling out the name of the eldest of the 3 young war orphans she cared for. Later, she would hardly remember if she had even made the call or not, for both her mind and her body seemed to have been temporarily paralyzed. But she did hear the voice of a child with a healthy pair of lungs calling out to her, saying, "Hey, Frau!" "What's going on? Frau, what happened?" After what seemed an eternity, she mustered up enough strength to respond. "Cats," she whispered. "I need you to come here. Just be with me for a minute. I'm in the factory rec room area. Cats." Out of the vidphone speaker, she faintly heard the young boy's voice calling once more, saying, "Frau, what's wrong?" "Frau, I can't see your face." And then, as he apparently turned to his daycare worker, "Teacher, something's wrong with my mom." Amuro, Frau thought. "Why aren't you here with me?" She wondered if she would ever be able to understand everything he and his crewmates were going through. And then she drifted into unconsciousness. "Amuro, I'm wearing some lipstick today." "For you, Amuro, for you. I've been trying it for you." Funny, huh? She felt indescribably lonely. And suddenly she desperately missed the warm touch of her young charges with their soft, smooth, alive skin. Baoa, 11 o'clock, down 23 degrees, relative speed, 0. Amuro knew they were getting close. "Damn," he spat as he pulled the trigger of his hyper bazooka one more time. In a fraction of a second, a shell tore into yet another Zaku armor and ripped it apart in the nick of time. The combat was so close in now that he had to disengage immediately or risk being caught in the ensuing blast. "What?" Suddenly, he heard a high-pitched sound, as if something were calling him. He looked up over his right shoulder, and to his astonishment beheld the fiercest-looking model of mobile armor he had ever encountered. And he was alone. Kai and Hayato were deployed off to his right and left, but at that very moment their thoughts were not linked, and he knew it would be several seconds before they realized what had happened. Seen from the front, at a distance of 300 meters, the Bro had 1 twin megaparticle cannon atop its fuselage and 3 underneath. But that, he quickly surmised, was probably deceiving. It might have even more. The machine looked as if it had been there, just waiting for him to turn around and notice. Why didn't I sense it come up on me? He wondered. There was no time to hesitate. He yanked his right-hand lever and put the verniers in the Gundam's legs on maximum thrust. He had to get out of the enemy machine's line of fire as soon as possible. On his monitors, he saw the Bro fuselage shudder and take off in pursuit of him. Then he suddenly heard it. Amuro. He had his normal suit headphones set to combat range, but with the Minovsky interference, he could usually hear only static. The voice he heard was clear as a bell and not coming across on radio, and neither Kai nor Hayato appeared to have noticed it. Then he heard it again. "Answer if you are Amuro Ray. Greater than. Chelia Bull detected shock from Amuro and immediately realized he had made a mistake. He had approached the Federation pilot too abruptly in a combat zone where mobile suit pilots had to expect to be attacked from any direction at any time. But it was too late to turn back now. He projected his thoughts toward Amuro in a torrent. Fighting here is pointless. We must leave here immediately. We have other work to do. We need your help. We want to enlist your new type talents in our cause. Greater than. Almost immediately he picked up a sharp, reflexive response, but he overinterpreted its true meaning and mistakenly assumed it was because Amuro was far more advanced as a new type than either Char Aznable or Cusco Al. He forgot that people were made up of both a rational and an emotive component, that Amuro might not be in a position to ponder his meaning and might sense only angry, garbled thoughts. He simply knew that there was no time to spare. The laser cannon might fire again in 10 minutes and take everything in its path with it. He tried again. We are both mobile suit pilots, but this war will not be settled by us killing each other. We must bring it to a resolution, and we need your skills to do it. Commander Char Aznable and I are about to leave this combat area in an attempt to overthrow the Zabi family. We need your help. If we can destroy Jiren Zabi, we can end the entire war. All other problems we can deal with later. Amuro Ray, you and your comrades are like us. Follow us out of this area toward the Principality of Zeon. Follow us before we're all destroyed by the system and the solar ray cannon. Had Sharia's thoughts arrived as concrete, audible speech, Amuro would no doubt have understood and responded as Chalia hoped. Sayla, after all, had told him her brother could be trusted. He and other members of the Pegasus II had even discussed something similar to Sharia's proposal among themselves, and General Revel, albeit in a rather oblique way, had given him and the others virtual carte blanche to conduct the war as they saw fit. But to Amuro, Sharia's thoughts were merely alien. Sharia's words were based on Sharia's own logic, which was in turn based on Sharia's personal reality, and when they were compressed into a torrent of pure thought instead of speech, the logical integrity of the statements was lost. To digest another individual's unique reality took time. To convert understanding into action took even more time. To expect it to happen in seconds was akin to expecting the impossible. The problem was compounded by two factors. First, thousands of Amuro's Earth Federation comrades had just been incinerated by the Principality of Zeon's attack, and their souls remained unavenged. The emotive component of his personality was thus nearly frozen with terror, blocking and warping his logical thought processes. Second, Amuro was infinitely more advanced than Chalia, and during his encounters with new types such as Lala Sun and Kuzcoal, a discrete part of his mind had been activated, making him hypersensitive. The intense, urgent tone of Sharia's delivery felt like a violent assault on his psyche. The more urgently Chalia tried to communicate, the more he was overwhelmed, the more it felt like mental rape. Why did Chalia attempt such an untested form of communication? He excelled at intuition and insight and, with Char Aznable, had occasionally succeeded in communicating his thoughts, but above all, he was desperate. I know you're a Federation new type. We need your help, he projected again. Amuro cursed in rage and with computer-like reflexes turned his hyper-bazooka toward the Brawl Bro and fired twice. With the aid of the new magnetic coating on the Gundam's moving parts, he was able to move faster than ever before, firing again before confirming how his first shot had performed. But somehow the Brawl Bro managed to evade his attacks. It slowly dawned on him that his opponent also possessed an extraordinary ability. The next instant, he was caught off guard when a volley of mega-particle beam blasts stabbed forth at him from a point several hundred meters away from the Brawl Bro. He fired the jets in the Gundam's backpack and feet and spun his mobile suit to the left. He hasn't perfected his aim yet, he thought. He's still wavering. But where will he fire from next? Could there be another machine around here? He intuitively sensed that the mega-particle blasts had been fired by the same person whose thoughts had assaulted him earlier. But because he did not know the mechanism that the Brawl Bro employed, he had to assume the possibility of another machine. And then it dawned on him. It was like the L myth, with remote units it could control. The only problem was that he could not detect the crisscrossing brainwaves that normally would accompany such a system. What's going on? He wondered. The Bra-Bro initiated a zigzag evasive action, with Chalia Bull still emitting powerful thought waves in Amuro's direction, trying to establish contact. I am Chalia Bull, an ally of Commander Char Aznable. You must help us. We must not fight each other. To protect himself, Chalia kept firing restraining blasts in the gray-colored suit's direction, but it kept tearing toward him, weaving in and out in an utterly random pattern. And from the powerful psychic waves being discharged, he knew the elusive young pilot inside was highly disturbed. What he did not know was that his thoughts registered on Amuro merely as angry screams and amplified his growing outrage, or that Amuro was desperately trying to understand the mechanism of his Bra-Bro from its silhouette. Why? Why are you so angry? Calm yourself and listen to me. Then Chalia fired 2 more restraining blasts from the mega particle guns on his remote right unit and accidentally revealed his secret. Amuro finally realized why the beams were coming at him from different directions. The machine in front of him was connected by wire to remote auxiliary cannon units. The units, separated from the main fuselage by several hundred meters, were independently aimed but were not emitting psychic energy on their own, as with the Elmeth bit system. That was why the psychic force directed at him was focused and was coming only from the main machine. And that was why he also realized the system was so dangerous. Unlike the Elmeth bit system, these remote units could approach and attack him unnoticed. Amazingly, whoever was piloting the machine was trying to contact him, Amuro, at the same time he was operating the units. Amuro lashed out at his enemy with a mental scream. Don't let it go to your head, new type. Chalia was stunned. Had he had too much faith, he wondered, in his ability to communicate with the Gundam? Had he made a colossal mistake? The young enemy new type was far more sensitive and emotional than he had ever imagined. Bitter and angry at himself, he began to edge away in his Bra-Bro. And then it happened. Hayato noticed the Bra-Bro and took off after it in his gun cannon in hot pursuit, firing his beam rifle. Where'd that thing come from? He yelled. I never saw anything like it. Kai also spotted the new enemy, but he had to take care of an attacking Zaku first. He knew his buddy probably couldn't hear him, but he yelled, Watch out, Hayato. It's a new model of mobile armor. Hayato closed in on the Bra-Bro, carefully aiming his suit's twin 28-centimeter shoulder cannons. The Bra-Bro appeared to see him and began sighting its 4 cannons. Then Hayato fired, and the incredible happened. The blast from his guns met head-on with a beam from one of the Bra-Bro's remote mega-particle cannons, and a huge ball of light erupted between the 2 machines and swirled into space. Stunned, Hayato put his gun cannon into retreat, but the flames from the exploding unit overtook him, scorching his suit and blowing it backwards. Amuro also took evasive action, but knew he had to stay in range of the Bra-Bro. Somehow he had to find a weak point in the enemy system. He wanted desperately to warn Kai, Hayato, and his crewmates on the Pegasus II about what was really going on. He knew his radio transmitter would not work, but somehow he thought if his comrades had new type potential, they just might understand him. He screamed, Watch out, there's a new type out here. Instead of peaceful psychic communion and universal awareness, Amuro's new type reality had become one of confusion and contradiction, of space combat fatigue. His scream was one of terror. Had he been a soldier in another age, fighting in the trenches on Earth, he might have had a few seconds to ponder the significance of Chalia Bull's actions. And then things might have taken a different course. But he was surrounded by 360 degrees of wide-open space. The red comet's out there. Sayla's clear, urgent voice echoed in the headphones of Lieutenant Slegaro's normal suit. But try as hard as he might, he could not see anything in front of him other than the lines of fire he was directing toward a Baoa Ku. Nonetheless, he yelled at his men manning the laser sensors. Keep your eyes open, he barked. If you see anything moving super fast out there, it's the red comet. Sometimes Slegar had to slap his men. Sometimes he even kicked them. But he always made sure the ship's guns kept firing. The monitors above the scopes had a super telescopic mode to monitor hits scored on the enemy. and although the images were of fuzzy resolution, he knew the guns were reaching their target. What he could not tell was whether they were inflicting any significant damage. The more he thought about it, the more Sayla's ability mystified him. He still could not see a trace of the red comet. On the Pegasus, Slegger usually played the obnoxious bore, but he prided himself on his common sense. After the meeting with General Revel, when Sayla had revealed her connection to the Daikun family, he had been careful not to broadcast her secret to the rest of the crew. He would have liked to, of course. He did not feel comfortable with the idea of someone with her background not being under surveillance, but he knew that his suspicions also stemmed from a perverse curiosity. Deep down inside, he believed she could be trusted. By nature, Slegger always empathized with the misfits in any group. No matter what Sayla had done in the past, no matter how diffidently she occasionally acted toward him, he knew she could handle just about any situation. If not, she never would have hooked up with someone still as wet behind the ears as Amuro Ray. She was an adult and knew what she was doing. If they got through this battle without being betrayed by her, he fantasized, he might steal her from Amuro and bed her down himself. In a rare moment of serious reflection, he decided she would be worth it. But if you turn out to be a traitor, Sayla, he thought with a chuckle, I'll strip you naked and feed you to the cold black vacuum of space. Then, suddenly, Slegger felt a strange sensation pierce his forehead. Shar? He quickly scanned the heavens once more with his scope monitors. Something was still reverberating in his mind, leaving an almost visible trail behind it. Is this it? He wondered. Is this what Mirai and Sayla have been talking about? The presence or force they mentioned? To his astonishment, there, in an area where nothing had been visible before, he saw something flash with a reddish hue. If he could have, he would have fired the Pegasus's main cannons at it, but he knew the light was coming from a combat zone where their own suits were involved in a melee with the enemy. He felt helpless. What's going on with the Gundam? Bright yelled in Sayla's direction. She was dressed in her normal suit, monitoring the communications console, and from her position could not easily tell what was worrying her skipper. No change, sir, she said. At least it seems that way. She was carrying out her assigned task to the letter, her voice clear and steady, without betraying the slightest hint of her own feelings. Operators, Bright barked. What's happening? Both C-108 and C-109 appear to be doing fine, sir, Ensign Oscar Dublin replied, checking the left and Rick displays he always monitored from his perch. Then a near scream suddenly came from Mirai Yashima, startling everyone on the bridge. Red Comet, she yelled, staring out the window. Closing in on us. Ensign Mark Cran, the other ship's operator, answered right after her. Portside, 2 suits, 11 o'clock, 2 minutes, up 27 degrees. For a moment, the Pegasus crew feared their ship was finally about to fall prey to the Red Comet, but Mirai had overreacted. The 2 suits approaching were Rick Doms belonging to Lieutenant Leroy Gilliam and a fellow pilot. After weaving through the Pegasus's defensive fire, Leroy finally got his first close look at the ship's unique shape. He could understand why Zeon pilots called it a Trojan horse, but it was far more elegant than he had imagined. Compared to the videos that Zeon scouts had brought back in the past, the real ship looked delicate, almost fantastic. He was an artist by training, and the Pegasus aroused mixed feelings in him. He was envious of its beauty and felt enormous respect for the Earth Federation for having adopted such an incongruous design for its new type unit. Suddenly, the enemy seemed far more creative to him than the Principality of Zeon. How can we possibly win against the Federation? He wondered as he fired a blast from his beam bazooka and immediately initiated evasive maneuvers. Damn, his blast seemed to have had no effect. The ship was still steady on course. Perhaps he had aimed at the wrong spot. His job was to gain time so Char Aznavour and Chalia Bull could approach the Gundam, and he had interpreted his orders to mean that he should avoid hitting the ship's bridge. The crew of the Trojan Horse, after all, might be the very new types they would want to enlist in their cause. There was no concrete evidence to support this theory, but he wanted to believe it. The ship's defensive fire was so intense, he could not get any closer. Geez, "What am I gonna do?" Leroy cried inside his suit. "If the commander doesn't decide what he's gonna do soon, I'm going to be fried." Tailing the bra bro and his Rickdom, Char Aznable realized his plans were starting to unravel. He began to worry that he had put too much faith in Chalia. The initial contact with the Gundam had not gone well, and Amuro Ray's reaction had been far too intense. Char had not been prepared for that. He had been stunned himself by the solar ray attack, in much the same way Amuro Ray must have been. He too had trembled in fear, but he had thought that the attack would have made enlisting the Federation new types in their cause easier rather than more difficult. The combat zone where the Bra Bro and the Gundam now faced off was interlaced with bands of fire and waves of psychic confusion. What the hell's going on? Char thought with irritation. He jammed his Rickdom's power levers for maximum thrust, and the flares from the rocket engines in its skirted base suddenly widened dramatically, sending him accelerating toward the Gundam so fast that for a moment the four Zakas following him imagined he might enter a sci-fi warp speed. They did not try to keep up, but instead deployed themselves in the battle zone to keep hostile suits and ships from entering the area. The Swammel and 3 consorts waited on standby alert a dozen kilometers out from Baoa. From Cassilia Zabi's perspective on the bridge of the Swammel, it looked as if the Earth Federation forces were going to make a suicidal attack on the space fortress. Warships under Vice Admiral Randolph Weigelman's command, she therefore assumed, would converge above the first combat line in the S-field, which meant that her unit would be assigned the top of a cone-shaped defensive perimeter. "Now's our chance," she muttered to herself. "But where's that damned Char Aznable? It's been over 5 minutes since the first solar ray attack." A communications officer handed her an envelope and announced, "We've received a communication from the S-Field Command Center, Excellency. It's been forwarded from Randolph Weigelman. He's requesting acknowledgement." Cassilia read the message. She knew the Vice Admiral was still unaware that she had left her command post and boarded the Swammel. She turned to her ship's captain and ordered, "Send a squad of 5 Zakus out in front of the Swammel. This ship is to be part of the final defense line and is supposed to move forward another 10 kilometers. That's an order from the command center, understand? Take us forward slowly as possible." She sent a reply to Randolph indicating she understood his communication, but sent it via the S-Field command post to make sure he would think she was still there. Then she performed an urgent check on the progress of the 300th Char Aznable's unit. "I wish I knew what my damn brother's plotting now," she thought. She still had no concrete proof Giran was planning to hit a Baoa next time. Then a young lieutenant from General Staff brought her news of Federation losses. "We have almost certain reports that 2 Earth Federation divisions were annihilated in the earlier attack, Excellency." "And what about our losses?" 2 battleships, 7 heavy cruisers, 6 light cruisers, and an unknown number of other ships missing, Excellency." If the reports were true, Caecilia knew Revel had lost nearly 1/3 of his entire armada. But in spite of that, his forces were pursuing their attack with equal, if not greater, ferocity. With their rear escape route cut off and fearful of being broadsided by another blast, they were probably desperate, and hoping to occupy and use a Baoa itself as cover. Something about the soft tone of the young man's voice angered Caecilia. "We're at war, Lieutenant," she reprimanded him. "We're not playing games. Never assume anyone will follow any rules." "Yes, Excellency," the officer replied, his face reddening. "We simply have no indication any missiles have been intercepted in the minefields protecting the fatherland." It was a feeble attempt at self-justification. Fortress, Revel was handing Giran a golden opportunity to execute his diabolical plot without having to incur an iota of guilt. "Damn you, Revel," Caecilia cursed under her breath. "Disperse your forces, or you're digging your own grave, and mine too." She turned to the ship's operator again, shook her fist and screamed, "Where's Commander Char?" "Wide-range attack," described the Bra Bro when it deployed its 4-wire guided cannon units the maximum distance and then struck the enemy. Lieutenant Chalia Bull had already lost one of the lower cannon to the Gundam, but he still had 3 left. Only a few seconds earlier, he had appealed to Amuro to flee the area and help him in the campaign to destroy Jiren, but now his mind was filled with murderous thoughts. Instead of restraining blasts, he was desperately trying to destroy the enemy's suit. Ironically, Sharia's change of mind helped shock Amuro out of his confusion and helped him suddenly concentrate on the reality of combat. He saw an apparition-like cloud ooze out of the enemy machine, just as he had from Dozel Zabi's Big Zam. It was not as dark, but he knew it was a manifestation of the pilot's combative mindset. "You bastard," he screamed inside his cockpit. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Trying to kill me with black magic?" In spite of the deliberate randomness of the enemy machine's movements, he had already deduced a pattern in them and realized how the wide-range attack system worked. Chalia Bull was momentarily distracted. Two enemy suits, gun cannons, suddenly assumed positions above and below the Gundam. Then one swept up at him from below with its shoulder guns blazing, while the other attacked from above. Had the three enemy pilots been of ordinary ability, he could have destroyed them easily with his remaining independent wire-guided cannons. But these were new types. Amuro's nervous system went into action, and because he was a new type, he was capable of moving with blinding speed. Taking immediate advantage of the confusion he sensed in the Zeon pilot, he instantly drew a bead with his beam rifle and fired. A narrow beam of light zapped out of the rifle barrel and seared a gaping hole in the enemy machine's cockpit. In the instant before he was vaporized by the full force of billions of searing megaparticles, Chalia Bull's last thought was pure shock and a belief that he had been shot by a mentally deranged new type. Then the Bra Bro's main engines blew, and the entire machine flowered into a ball of light. Kai screamed, "Char!" but neither his words nor the thought behind them reached Amuro. The instant Amuro's shot hit the Bra Bro, his nervous system virtually shut down. In the frenzy of combat, his hypersensitive nervous system had temporarily overloaded, blocking his comprehension of Sharia's thoughts. But now, in a delayed reaction, he had finally realized what Chalia had been trying to do, and had been seized with profound self-loathing. True, he had been stunned by the solar ray attack just before encountering the Bra Bro, but he had been grossly mistaken in thinking Sharia's attempt at communication was an attack, and in then destroying him. My God, what have I done? Memories of Lala's son and Cusco Al immediately returned. Perhaps it had all been an illusion, a hallucination, but he truly believed they had shown him a vision beyond time, encompassing both the past and the future. If he were truly worthy of them, and if he understood what their lives had meant, then he surely should have been able to understand what Chalia Bull, risking his very life and soul, had tried to convey to him in their brief encounter. It seemed he had learned nothing. Get out of here. Amuro sank into a deep, paralyzing despair. The Gundam continued traveling on inertia in a straight line through space. Char Aznable was stunned. "Damn it, Chalia," he screamed in grief. "It was too soon. The unthinkable had happened, and Chalia had been destroyed because of his haste. But was their plan destroyed too? Could they still not ensnare the Gundam's pilot? The enemy mobile suit looked as though it had been mortally damaged in the showdown with the Bra Bro. It was drifting seemingly frozen, and the pilot, from all appearances, was unconscious. For a second, Char was torn by confusion. Should he abandon his idea and merely follow Cassilia out of the area? If they left such a powerful suit alone, he worried, it would surely come after them and destroy them. In the seconds while Char wavered, he gave his enemies an opening. With a wham, a shell from a red gun cannon exploded next to his Rick-Dom. Then another, and another. His suit shuddered and miraculously survived, yet he felt a sound like that of a howl of wind go through his mind and knew it was not a hallucination. He knew it came from the gun cannon pilot. He maneuvered his suit to cross in front of the enemy, and then spotted yet another gun cannon closing in on him with breathtaking speed. Instinctively, he knew its rifle was sighted directly on his chest. In a flash, he twisted away, turned back, aimed his beam bazooka, and fired before the gun cannon pilot could adjust. Char's bazooka belched fire. A light suddenly illuminated Hayato Kobayashi's gun cannon. It turned white hot, melted and dissolved in a ball of light that spread out in the black sky in huge rings. Amuro Ray suddenly woke from his semi-conscious state. A terrible scream pierced his mind, and he instantly knew it was Hayato's death cry. He gritted his teeth and felt his friend's death as if it were his own. But the shock focused his mind again on the battlefield before him. As the light from Hayato's exploding gun cannon swirled into the vacuum of space, expanding farther and farther, he knew what he had to do. He screamed in rage, stomped on the accelerator pedals, jammed the left and right control levers forward, and leapt over the explosion. In his earphones, he could hear Kai weeping. When he checked, he realized the surviving gun cannon was only 50 meters away, below and to his left, but positioned so that the light would blind him to an enemy approach. "Kai," Amuro yelled. "The red comet's on the other side of the explosion, but he's not the enemy, he's on our side. We've got to help him." "What?" Kai screamed. "But he just killed Hayato." Ignoring Kai, Amuro turned his Gundam around toward the Pegasus 2 in the distance and plunged toward it. He activated his front laser sensors and temporarily locked his course. He knew if the Gundam wavered at all, they would never be able to read the message he was about to send. G3 to Pegasus 2. "This is the Gundam. The Red Comet is trying to enlist our help. This area has been targeted for the next laser attack by Giran Zabi. Leave here immediately. Follow Char Aznable." And then it happened. After evading the gun cannon's explosion, Char again sighted the Gundam and by its movement realized the pilot had suddenly revived. But so did two other Rick-Doms in his unit. Lieutenant Leroy Gilliam and his partner, in charge of maintaining diversionary fire against the Pegasus, had spotted the Gundam's laser sensor signals and targeted their source. As Char watched in horror, they fired their beam bazookas and scored direct hits on the Gundam. "Leroy!" Char screamed. Curses echoed in his cockpit as he fell into a paroxysm of self-loathing. Suddenly, in the midst of Char's mental chaos and confusion, an alien thought appeared. "Amuro?" It lasted only a second, but he instinctively knew it had come from the Gundam pilot. And in the same instant, another awareness welled up in him, churning through old memories, echoing over and over again deep in his soul. Lala. Incredibly, he felt as though he had entered another dimension of communication. He could hear her. "Commander, I'm so happy to be with you again. I'm grateful to Amuro Ray, because this never would have been possible without him. But most of all, I'm grateful to you. You made the connection. You helped me realize my true potential, to realize how far human awareness can expand." Then Char heard the Gundam pilot again. "I know I was naive, Char Aznable, or should I say Kasval Daikun. I'm the one who hung around your sister, the one who killed Lala Sun and Cusco Al, the one who was unable to figure out what you were trying to do and screwed up your plans as a result. What can I say? I'm sorry." Next, Char felt the presence of someone else and, to his astonishment, realized it was Cusco Al. Somehow, Amuro Ray, Lala Sun, and Cusco Al were all alive and distinct entities in his consciousness. Their presence assaulted his brain like a giant flare. "You were always a cute, Commander, because you always tried so hard. You tried so hard to be in control, to be mature, to be a schemer. Compared to you, Amuro was too well behaved. Oh, he was too good. Ha ha ha." Char's experience was real, unique, and transcendent, but as he knew, it was not a result of his own expanded consciousness. Rather, it resulted from the intensity of the psychic waves that Amuro Ray himself had emitted. Amuro's stored psychic potential had literally exploded. In the midst of this shower of psychic waves, Char was still able to question his own actions objectively. He was enraged by his own weakness and his failure to have helped Lala, Cusco, or Amuro. To his shock, Amuro's consciousness continued communicating, with Lala Sun and Cusco Al interjecting comments. Char was overwhelmed. "Amuro Ray, you're already dead," he exclaimed. "What gives you the right to say anything? If you're so enlightened, why were you so afraid of what Chalia was trying to tell you? Why'd you let yourself be killed by someone as green as Leroy?" Then in a moment of pure perversity he yelled, "You may be in some sort of spiritual nirvana, Amuro Ray, but now you'll never get either Lala's son or Cusco Al. It was his ultimate insult, and he regretted it the moment he said it. Amuro never had time to answer, for his consciousness had already diffused into the cosmos. Psychic waves flowed into his cerebrum, mixed with fleeting, undefined images of two women. The thoughts never formed a solid, logical continuum, as with Amuro when he had first encountered Lala's son. Leroy Gilliam's mind was overwhelmed by the utter newness of the experience. "Is this the Gundam pilot?" he said out loud, sensing Amuro's presence. "Laugh if you want, Lieutenant. It is. Don't ever forget, you're like me. You're young, and you make mistakes, but there's no room for error in this game, so be careful. Sometimes, even when the combat's intense, you have to be aware of what's going on outside yourself. Don't be rash. Don't be too self-absorbed. Don't make the same mistakes I made." For some reason, Leroy was later left with a single burning impression that he knew had come directly from Amuro. Later, after everything blurred, he would think, Char's a new type. As Kai Shiden watched, Amuro's suit was enveloped in an explosion even bigger than the one that had swallowed Hayato. He raged and wept, but the same psychic resonance that had affected both Char Aznable and Leroy Gilliam seeped into his consciousness too, and it left an even more clearly defined impression. In his mind, Amuro spoke clearly. "Hayato was killed, but now you've got to help Char Aznable, Kai. You've got to look beyond the immediate tragedy, or everyone will die. Jiren Zabi's the real enemy. Then, after Jiren, Jaburo." "Damn you, Amuro," Kai sobbed bitterly. "Why'd you go off and get killed and leave us?" "'Cause you didn't have an amulet, that's why. Why should I listen to you now?" He knew he could not possibly carry out Amuro's wishes alone. He continued raging, but he knew that the things Amuro and the other mobile suit pilots had speculated about were more than a dream. They were gradually coming true. The world they knew was changing. Amuro's exploding consciousness had affected everyone in the immediate area with new type potential, subtly creating a common thread of awareness even among sworn enemies. Intuitively, Kai knew that he was now linked by a new consciousness with Char. The universe, which for the last few seconds seemed to have frozen, was about to change. With bloodshot eyes, he scanned the space in front of him. In the Pegasus II's main gun turret, Lieutenant Slegger Rose suddenly tapped the headset built into his normal suit helmet. A voice, or a thought, had suddenly slipped into his consciousness. "The Red Comet is different from the others, Slegger. You have to follow him now. If you stay here, you're all finished. You must escape from this area. Turn your guns on the true enemy." Slegger turned around and exclaimed to his men, "Somebody say this area is dangerous?" When no one replied, he checked the space in front of the ship, and to his astonishment saw a huge ring of light spreading through the blackness. Immediately, he knew. It was Amuro. So that, a speechless Slegger realized, was a true new type. Mirai Yashima was manning the helm as usual when she heard the voice. "Mirai, Char Aznable's not who you think he is. He's got a plan to end the war. Mirai, follow him out of this area immediately. Understand? Jiren Zabi's next laser attack is intended to take the entire Baoa space fortress with it. You must escape. Go with Char, Mirai. He's right. Concentrate on destroying Jiren Zabi. Then Jaburo. That will end the war. New types have to work together." "Amuro," Mirai screamed. "Amuro. Was that Amuro?" Bright said, staring in shock at the light in the sky. As if in answer, Sayla reported over the communication system in a muffled voice. It was a direct hit. Amuro's consciousness had already pierced her mind like a storm, and to her embarrassment, she had again lost control of her bladder. "Initiated me into adulthood, Sayla." Sayla detected sadness in his message. She felt her body and mind relax. If only it were possible to erase the pain the physical body remembered. "Sayla, I don't want to die alone. I want you. If only I could feel your warmth again. If only you could love me again. Forever. I wish I could take you with me. I don't want to go alone. I don't want to die alone. Sayla." Not all of Amuro's last thoughts were dedicated to Sayla. There was one other person he had to communicate with, and she knew it and tried to accept it. It's not like you think, Sayla. Frau Bo lay semi-conscious in a 10-bed ward of the Luna 2 military hospital. The night lamp beside her illuminated her trembling form, curled up under her blankets. Suddenly she saw Amuro, standing next to her. Frau, did the fever go away? Greater than. Yes, Amuro, it did. You look so tired. What happened? What are you doing here? The war's not over yet, is it? Greater than. No, Frau. I'm here to tell you I won't be able to see you again. Why? Why now? I thought you'd forgotten about me, Amuro. I never forgot you, Frau. Really, I never did. When Frau raised her head from her bed and looked at Amuro, his pilot suit seemed to be glowing gently. He looked almost translucent but real. I'll never let you go, Amuro. Never. You're mine, Amuro. And then she heard words that wrenched her soul. I'm sorry, Frau, but I'm already dead. No, you can't be. Frau nearly screamed, her arms, clinging to thin air suddenly, collapsed on her chest. Please, Amuro, don't go. What'll I do? Please don't go. Frau was communicating with neither thoughts nor words. Amuro's last message swept over her numbed psyche. Don't worry, Frau. You'll be all right. Those little kids will keep you busy. They're a gift from God. Frau Bo finally lost control. Tears streamed down her cheeks and she burst into sobs. There were other things Amuro tried to convey. He tried to explain the first leap in consciousness he had experienced in his encounter with Lala-san. He tried to demonstrate how one individual's consciousness could fuse with that of another, how in the process his consciousness had nearly exploded. His message did not register on everyone, for his thousands of thoughts transpired in an instant, and to separate them into discrete ideas required the ability to interpret vast quantities of information simultaneously, in short, the ability of a potential new type. Without that ability, Amuro's explosion of ideas was merely perceived as thought garbled beyond recognition, like the farewell cry of the thousands of individuals incinerated by the earlier solar ray attack, whose collective thoughts had been felt as a solid wave of terror. But there were potential new types in the area, and they picked up the information relevant to them and sensed the living consciousness of Lala-san and Cusco Al that existed in Amuro's mind. Shall henceforth evacuate the area and proceed directly to the heartland of the Principality of Zeon. All forces are ordered to be on the alert for attacks from a Baoa crew, but to refrain from firing on the red-skirted mobile suit and the Zakas accompanying us. Full speed ahead. Mirai, hands on the helm, energetically replied, "Yes, sir," in acknowledgement. She now trusted her skipper implicitly. He had made precisely the same decision she would have made. "Sayla," Bright ordered, "open a communications channel for Shar Aznable, and let General Revel know immediately why we have to leave the area. He has us under observation from the main armada." "Yes, sir," Sayla replied, her still trembling hands resting on the switches of the communications console in front of her. "Hurry," Bright barked. "We don't have a minute to lose." Shar Aznable, out in space in his Rick-Dom, lined up his laser sensor sights on the Pegasus II while Leroy and his other men covered for him. When the laser was correctly calibrated, a voice issued from his headphones saying, "Commander Shar Aznable, this is the Pegasus II. We have decided to leave the area with you. We await your instructions." The voice was official sounding, but he immediately knew it was his sister Artesia. After a second of stunned silence, he replied with the information she wanted, telling her the best course to take to avoid the next solar ray attack. Then he added, "But don't expect all your ships to be able to make it. The solar ray is capable of strafing us along the way." "We read you, Commander," Sayla answered, "and I request that the Pegasus follow the Swammel." "Request is understood," Sayla replied firmly. When Shar heard how clear and strong his sister's voice was, he felt somehow reassured. They had been separated for years, but he knew she had developed the strength of character to survive. Then Shar notified the Swammel that he was leaving the combat area and joining it. In the midst of a raging Armageddon-sized space battle, a warning from a single ship stood a high probability of being overlooked. especially when both radio and laser transmissions were highly unreliable, and there was no guarantee of the integrity of the information. On General Revel's flagship, the Drog, a strange, confusing message from the Pegasus II was received. It eluded Revel's comprehension, for he lacked enough knowledge to put it into its proper context. "It says here, sir, leave area, but I'm not sure what that means, sir. What do you think?" "I don't know either," Revel answered. "It's possible they're leaving in order to avoid another attack from the Zeon's laser cannon, but it's hard to see how retreating or changing course would help us at this point. We have to move to a point where a Baoa crew will provide some cover for us in case another laser attack comes. It's just that we don't know when it will come." "I don't see how they could try and fire so close to a Baoa crew, sir," said one of his aides. "It'd be a real mess. They'd never dare." Revel laughed at his staff officer. "You're being too optimistic," he said. "Don't forget there's a man sitting in an easy chair in a room in Zeon with his finger on the button, and all he has to do is move that finger a centimeter, and wham, the laser cannon goes off. It'll go off even if he sneezes, and besides, in a life-and-death struggle, he's not going to worry if things get a little messy. If I was in Giran Zabi's position, and I thought I had a chance of annihilating most of the Federation force, heck, I'd push the button, even if it would generate a few casualties on my own side. Giran can always shed a tear and mourn the Zeon losses later. He can always claim they were for a greater cause, for total victory. I see your point, sir. Second were Shar Aznable and the 7 mobile suits under his command. The pilots were all silent. All were beginning to understand the true significance of their mission. One, Leroy Gilliam, opened the visor of his pilot's suit and wiped tears from his eyes, and he uttered the same words Amuro Ray had uttered before him. "My God, what have I done?"